Think you know the whole story? Turns out you were probably taught the half-truth. Welcome to Half-Truths. Think back to the sound, that screeching, beeping digital handshake. The sound of a 56K modem dialing up, a sound that promised entry into a new world. A world of chat rooms, blinking GeoCities pages, and the thrill of hearing a robotic voice announce, "You've got mail." In those early days, the internet felt like a place you went to. You logged on and you logged off. It was a destination. As it wove its way into the fabric of our lives, becoming as essential as electricity, we needed a simpler way to think about it. We needed a metaphor. And in 2006, we got one. A gloriously simple, endlessly mockable, and surprisingly sticky one. The internet, we were told, is a series of tubes. It's a network of pipes, and information, like water, flows through them. If you send an email, it goes into the tube on your end and comes out the tube on your friend's end. You download a movie. It's just a lot of data being pushed through a very big tube. It's an analogy that feels intuitive. It's physical. It's understandable. It turns this impossibly complex global system into something as familiar as the plumbing in your house. This metaphor, uttered by a politician trying to make a point about network traffic, became a cultural touchstone, a punchline that signaled a certain kind of technological cluelessness. We all had a good laugh. But here's the thing about a good laugh. It often makes us stop asking questions. We dismiss the metaphor, but we subconsciously absorbed its meaning. We still act as though the internet is a simple utility that just works. We flip a switch and the data flows. But what if that story, the one about the simple series of tubes, isn't the whole story? What if the punchline is that by laughing at the metaphor, we missed the chance to understand the breathtaking, chaotic, and almost miraculous reality it conceals? Today, we're going to unlearn the idea of the internet as a simple pipe. We're going to pull the thread on the half-truth that has defined our understanding of the modern world and discover that the real story isn't about plumbing. It's about explosions, trust, and a message in a million digital bottles. The story we all know, the one that lives in memes and late-night monologues, begins on June 28, 2006. The setting is a U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation hearing. The topic is a deeply important and complex one: network neutrality. The debate was about whether internet service providers should be allowed to charge content providers, like Google or YouTube, for faster access to their customers. On one side, telecom companies argued they needed to manage their networks. On the other, internet advocates warned of a future with digital fast lanes and slow lanes where innovation could be stifled. Into this debate stepped Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. He was a powerful and long-serving senator, but not one known for his tech savvy. In an attempt to explain his opposition to net neutrality regulations, he launched into a winding, folksy analogy. He described an employee sending an email and then immediately trying to download a movie, and how this clogs up the network for others. He famously said, and I quote, "The internet is not something that you just dump something on. It's not a big truck. It's a series of tubes." He went on, digging the hole deeper. And if you don't understand, those tubes can be filled. And if they are filled, when you put your message in, it gets in line and it's going to be delayed by anyone that puts into that tube enormous amounts of material. The image was immediate and irresistible. A befuddled old politician trying to legislate the future, comparing the internet to a bathroom drain. The mockery was swift and merciless. The Daily Show had a field day. Tech blogs exploded. A series of tubes became shorthand for being hopelessly out of touch with the digital age. The metaphor is compelling in its simplicity because it aligns with our user experience. We don't see the complexity. We click a link, and a website from a server in Australia appears on our phone in Massachusetts almost instantly. The experience feels direct. It feels like there's a direct connection, a tube, between you and the content. The analogy also gives us a simple way to think about internet problems. Why is my video buffering? The tube must be clogged. Why is my connection slow tonight? Too many people are using the tubes in my neighborhood. It translates a deeply abstract system into a tangible physical one. And that's what a good metaphor is supposed to do. The problem is, this one is fundamentally, beautifully, and dangerously wrong. The moment you start to gently poke at the series of tubes analogy, it collapses. Think about your home's plumbing. If a pipe breaks between your house and the water main, you don't get water. The connection is severed. There is one path, and it is now blocked. End of story. But that's not how the internet works, is it? We hear stories all the time about major undersea cables being cut by ship anchors or damaged in underwater earthquakes. These are the biggest tubes on the planet, carrying massive amounts of data between continents. Yet when one of these is severed, the internet for an entire continent doesn't just switch off. Things might slow down, traffic might be rerouted, but your email from London still finds its way to New York. The system adapts. It heals. The water, so to speak, finds another way. This single observation is the loose thread that unravels the entire metaphor. The internet was never designed to be a series of simple, direct tubes. It was designed with the exact opposite principle in mind. It was designed for resilience in the face of catastrophe. It was designed to survive a nuclear war. To find the origin of the real story, we have to go back to the height of the Cold War. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, the U.S. military was grappling with a terrifying problem. How do you maintain command and control after a nuclear attack? The existing communication system, the telephone network, was centralized. It relied on key switching centers in major cities. If those cities were vaporized, the entire network would be decapitated. Communication would cease. In 1964, a Polish-American engineer at the Rand Corporation named Paul Barron published a series of papers outlining a radical new idea. He proposed a communication network with no central authority, a distributed network where every node was connected to several other nodes. Most importantly, he proposed chopping up messages into small, standardized blocks, which he called message blocks. Each block would be given a destination address and sent out into the network independently. If one path was destroyed, the blocks could dynamically find another. At the destination, the blocks would be reassembled into the original message. This concept, which would later be independently developed by British physicist Donald Davies, who coined the term packet switching, was the foundational genetic code of the Internet. It is the antithesis of a series of tubes. A tube represents a single continuous connection, a dedicated circuit. Packet switching is more like the postal service. Imagine you want to send a 1,000-page manuscript to a publisher. In a tube world, you'd need a dedicated delivery truck that drives your manuscript, and only your manuscript, directly from your house to the publisher. It's inefficient and vulnerable. If that truck crashes, the manuscript is lost. In the world of packet switching, you tear the manuscript into 1,000 individual pages. You put each page in its own envelope, write the publisher's address on it, and number it from 1 to 1,000. Then you dump all 1,000 envelopes into the mailbox. The Postal Service doesn't care that they're all part of the same book. Each envelope is treated as an individual piece of mail. They get tossed into different bags, put on different trucks, flown on different planes. One envelope might go through Denver, another through Atlanta. They will arrive at the publisher out of order. But because they are numbered, the publisher can reassemble them into the complete manuscript. If one plane crashes and 100 envelopes are lost, you only need to resend those 100 pages, not the whole book. That is the genius of packet switching. It's robust, it's efficient, and it's how every single piece of data travels on the internet today. This core idea, born from Cold War paranoia, was implemented in the late 1960s with the creation of ARPANET, the precursor to the modern Internet. It was a small network connecting a few universities and research centers, but it was built on this revolutionary foundation of decentralization and packet switching. There was no central hub. There were no dedicated tubes. There was just a resilient, interconnected web designed to keep information flowing, even if parts of it were blown off the map. So, if the internet isn't a series of simple tubes, what is it? The reality is a multi-layered, semi-chaotic, and constantly adapting global organism that is far more wondrous and strange than any plumbing system. It exists as a stack of concepts, built one on top of the other, from the deeply physical to the purely abstract. At the very bottom layer, the internet is physical. Just not in the way Senator Stevens imagined. It's not a series of tubes, but a mind-bogglingly vast network of fiber optic cables. These are the true arteries of global data. Bundles of glass threads, each thinner than a human hair, stretched across the ocean floor for thousands of miles. Light pulses down these threads, carrying data at nearly the speed of light. Right now, there are over 500 of these submarine cables crisscrossing the planet, a hidden web that physically connects us all. When a ship's anchor accidentally severs one of these cables, the internet doesn't stop. It just feels a slight tremor. That's because of the layers built on top of the physical one. The next layer up is a set of rules, a common language that all the connected computers have agreed to speak. This is called the Internet Protocol Suite, or TCP/IP. Think of it as the Internet's grammar. The IP part, the Internet Protocol, is like the addressing system. Every device connected to the Internet has a unique IP address, like a house number and street. It's how the packets of data know where they're supposed to go. The TCP part, the Transmission Control Protocol, is the polite conversation manager. It's the protocol that takes a large file, say a picture of a cat, and chops it up into numbered packets before sending. It's also the protocol on the receiving end that collects all those packets, checks to make sure none are missing, arranges them back in the correct order, and reassembles the cat picture. If some packets get lost along the way, TCP sends a message back saying, "Excuse me, I seem to be missing packets 72, 105, and 341. Could you please resend them?" It ensures that what you send is what gets received reliably. But how do the packets know which path to take through this global maze of networks? They don't just flow through a predetermined tube. Their journey is determined in real time by a system of routers. Routers are the traffic cops of the internet. When your packet arrives at a router, the router looks at its destination IP address and makes a split-second decision about the best next hop to send it on its way. It consults a constantly updating map of the network, looking for the fastest, least congested path. This means that two packets from the same email, sent milliseconds apart, could take completely different routes across the world to reach the same destination. One might bounce from Boston to London to Frankfurt to Tokyo, while the next goes from Boston to Virginia to Los Angeles to Tokyo. This brings us to the most chaotic and perhaps most human layer of the internet, the network of networks. The internet isn't one single entity. It's a voluntary interconnection of tens of thousands of separate networks operated by different companies, universities, and governments. Verizon is a network. Comcast is a network. Google runs a massive global network. Your local university runs a network. The magic of the internet is that they have all agreed to connect to each other and exchange traffic, a process called peering. The routing of traffic between these massive networks is governed by a protocol called the Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. If TCP/IP is the grammar of the internet, BGP is its diplomacy. It's a system built almost entirely on trust. Each network announces to its neighbors, "Hey, I know how to reach these IP addresses." Its neighbors then take that information, add it to their own maps, and pass it along. There's no central authority checking to see if these announcements are true. In 2008, for example, the Pakistan Telecom Network accidentally announced to the world that it was the best route to YouTube. For a couple of hours, a huge chunk of the world's YouTube traffic was rerouted to Pakistan, where it hit a dead end, effectively taking the site offline for millions. It was fixed when engineers called each other on the phone. That's the real internet. Not a series of tubes, but a complex, trust-based, and surprisingly fragile system of handshakes and agreements. And we haven't even mentioned the final layer of abstraction, the one we interact with every day. The domain name system, or DNS. When you type /google.com into your browser, your computer has no idea where that is. It needs an IP address, so it sends a query to a DNS server, which acts as the internet's phone book, looking up /google.com and returning the correct IP address. Only then can your computer start sending packets to Google servers. It's a planet-spanning, distributed database that makes the internet human-readable. Without it, we'd all have to memorize strings of numbers to visit our favorite websites. So, the next time you click a link, picture what's really happening. Your request is chopped into tiny numbered packets. Those packets are addressed and sent on a journey, not through one tube, but across a web of interconnected networks. They leap from router to router, each one making a best guess decision about the next step. They travel through fiber optic cables under your street, across continents on the ocean floor, and through massive data centers, all in the blink of an eye. At their destination, they are caught, reassembled in the correct order, and the web page appears on your screen. It is a miracle of decentralized coordination. It is a system that is simultaneously more robust and more fragile than a simple series of tubes could ever be. So, we come full circle, from a dial-up modem's shriek to a flawed but sticky metaphor. The story of the internet is the story of unlearning simplicity. The series of tubes analogy wasn't just wrong, it was a disservice. By making the internet seem simple and physical, like plumbing, it made the debates around it seem simple too. It frames issues like net neutrality as a simple question of managing a clogged pipe, rather than what it truly is, a complex debate about the future of a layered, decentralized ecosystem built on protocols of openness and trust. It allows us to ignore the incredible fragility and complexity that underpins our modern world. Understanding that the internet is not a series of tubes is to understand its true nature. It is not a utility delivered by a single company. It is a consensus. It is a shared agreement, a set of protocols that tens of thousands of independent networks voluntarily adopt for their mutual benefit. It works not because someone is in charge, but precisely because no one is. It is chaotic, messy, and held together by a combination of fiber optic glass, logical rules, and human trust. Correcting this half-truth matters because it forces us to see the internet for what it is, one of the greatest feats of collective engineering in human history. It is a testament to the power of open standards and decentralized cooperation. It is a system designed to root around damage, to withstand attack, to keep the message flowing. The metaphor of a tube is finite and rigid. The reality of the internet is a sprawling, living, evolving web of connections that more closely resembles a neural network than a piece of hardware. It's less like plumbing and more like a city, with highways, back alleys, and neighborhoods constantly being built, rerouted, and reimagined by the people who inhabit it. The internet is not a series of tubes. It is a reflection of us. Now you know the real story. What other half-truths are still out there? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, and join us next time. Until then, stay curious.